In this video, we are going to watch top 5 attractions in Paris, France. Number 1. The largest museum in the world. Louvre Museum. Number 2. Eiffel Tower. Number 3. Palace of Versailles. Number 4. Seine River. Number 5. Disneyland Paris. The Louvre or the Louvre Museum is a national art museum in Paris, France. It is located on the right bank of the Seine in the city's first arrondissement and home to some of the most canonical works of Western art, including the Mona Lisa and the Venus de Milo. The museum is housed in the Louvre Palace, originally built in the late 12th to 13th century under Philip II. The history of Louvre. The Louvre Palace, which houses the museum, was begun by King Philip II in the late 12th century to protect the city from the attack from the west, as the Kingdom of England still held Normandy at the time. Collections of the museum. The Musée du Louvre owns 615,797 objects, of which 482,943 are accessible online since 24 March 2021 and displays 35,000 works of art in 8 curatorial departments. Egyptian antiquities. The Louvre is home to one of the world's most extensive collections of art, including works from diverse cultures and time periods. Visitors can view iconic works like the Mona Lisa and the Winged Victory of Samothrace, as well as pieces from ancient civilizations such as Egypt, Greece, and Rome. The department comprising over 50,000 pieces. Near Eastern antiquities. This is the second newest department, dates from 1881 and presents an overview of early Near Eastern civilization and first settlements before the arrival of Islam. The department is divided into 3 geographic areas: the Levant, Mesopotamia, now Iraq, and Persia, now Iran. The collection's development corresponds to archaeological work, such as Paul-Émile Bada's 1843 expedition to Khorsabad and the discovery of Sargun Izti's palace. These finds formed the basis of the Assyrian Museum, the precursor to today's department. The museum contains exhibits from Sumer and the city of Akkad, with monuments such as the Prince of Lajash's Stele of the Vultures from 2050 BC and the stele erected by Naram-Sin, king of Akkad, to celebrate a victory over barbarians in the Zagros Mountains. Greek antiquities. The Greek, Etruscan, and Roman department displays pieces from the Mediterranean basin dating from the Neolithic to the 6th century. The collection spans from the cyclic period to the decline of the Roman Empire. This department is one of the museum's oldest. It began with appropriated royal art, some of which was acquired under Francis I. Islamic art. The Islamic art collection, the museum's newest, spans 13 centuries and 3 continents. These exhibits of ceramics, glass, metalware, wood, ivory, carpet, textiles, and miniatures include more than 5,000 works and 1,000 shards. Originally part of the decorative arts department, the holdings became separate in 2003. Some of the Second Empire style rooms of the apartments of Napoleon VIII. The objects art collection spans the time from the Middle Ages to the mid-19th century. The department began as a subset of the sculpture department, based on royal property and the transfer of work from the Basilique Saint-Denis, the burial ground of French monarchs that held the coronation sword of the kings of France. Painting a Mona Lisa by Leonardo da Vinci between 1503–1506, perhaps continuing until between 1517. Oil on poplar panel. The size is 77 cm 53 cm. The painting collection has more than 7,500 works from the 13th century to 1848 and is managed by 12 curators who oversee the collection's display. Nearly 2/3 are by French artists, and more than 1,200 are Northern European. The Eiffel Tower was designed by the esteemed engineer Gustave Eiffel, who ran a busy workshop in Le Valois-Perret, near Paris. His engineering company specialized in metal frameworks, many of which featured the same distinct lattice metalwork seen in the Eiffel Tower. Some of his most notable constructions include the Porto Viaduct in Portugal, the Viaduc du Garabit in France, and the metal framework for the Statue of Liberty. Eiffel won an open competition to design the Eiffel Tower, which was to be the crowning glory during the Paris World Fair of 1889. The construction of the Eiffel Tower took around 22 months to complete. a remarkable feat for the time, when workers had far fewer of the machines and tools we rely on today. Miraculously, given how high workers had to climb, no one was killed or hurt during the tower's construction. The Eiffel Tower has 3 floors in total, all of which are open to visitors. The first 2 floors are accessible by stairs and an elevator, while the top level, or summit, must be climbed by steps. The first 2 floors feature restaurants and cafes, while on each level there is an observational deck for looking out into the city of Paris from on high. Perhaps unsurprisingly, the weight of the Parisian tower is impressively high, coming in at about the same weight as an entire freight train. In total, estimates suggest it is around 10,100 tons. The metal framework alone weighs around 7,300 tons, while the thick layer of protective paint on its surface is 60 tons. Under Gustave Eiffel's strict instruction, the Eiffel Tower must be repainted with a thick layer of protective paint every 7 years in order to protect the iron from the corrosive effects of the weather. Over the years, the tower has been painted various different colors, from the original reddish-brown shade to bright yellow. In 1968, a specially mixed paint shade called Eiffel Tower Brown was adopted by the French, which is still in use today. In 2024, the Eiffel Tower will be revamped with a golden paint hue to coincide with the 2024 Paris Olympics. The repainting job will be one of the tower's most extensive revamps in 130 years. The Palace of Versailles is a former royal residence built by King Louis XVI, located in Versailles, about 19 kilometers west of Paris, France. The palace is owned by the French Republic and since 1995 has been managed under the direction of the French Ministry of Culture by the public establishment of the Palace, Museum and National Estate of Versailles. About 15 million people visit the palace, park, or gardens of Versailles every year, making it one of the most popular tourist attractions in the world. The palace and park were designated a World Heritage Site by UNESCO in 1979 for its importance as the center of power, art, and science in France during the 17th and 18th centuries. The French Ministry of Culture has placed the palace, its gardens, and some of its subsidiary structures on its list of culturally significant monuments. The Hall of Mirrors is a long gallery at the westernmost part of the palace that looks out onto the gardens. The hall was built from 1678 to 1681 on the site of a terrace levau built between the king and queen's suites. The hall is clad in marble and decorated in a modified version of the Corinthian order, with 578 mirrors facing 17 windows and reflecting the light provided by them. The ceiling fresco, painted by Lebrun over the next 4 years, embellishes the first 18 years of Louis XIV's reign in 30 scenes, 17 of which are military victories over the Dutch. The fresco depicts Louis XIV himself alongside classical figures in the scenes, celebrating moments in his reign such as the beginning of personal rule in 1661, breaking from earlier frescoes at Versailles that used allegories derived from classical and mythological scenes. The Royal Chapel of Versailles is located at the southern end of the north wing. 168, the building stands 40 meters high and measures 42 meters long and 24 meters wide. The chapel is rectangular with a semicircular apse, combining traditional Gothic Royal French church architecture with the French Baroque style of Versailles. The ceiling of the chapel is constituted by an unbroken vault, divided into 3 frescoes by Antoine Coypel, Charles de la Fosse, and Jean Jouvenet. The palette of motifs beneath the frescoes glorify the deeds of Louis IX and include images of David, Constantine Charlemagne, and Louis IX, fleur-de-lis, and Louis XIV's monogram. The organ of the chapel was built by Robert Clicquot and Julien Tribuet in 1709-1710. The Royal Opera of Versailles was originally commissioned by Louis XIV in 1682 and was to be built at the end of the north wing with a design by Mansart and Vigorani. However, due to the expense of the King's Continental Wars, the project was put aside. The idea was revived by Louis XV with a new design by Anne-Jacques Gabriel in 1748. But this was also temporarily put aside. The project was revived and rushed ahead for the planned celebration of the marriage of the Dauphin, the future Louis XVI, and Marie Antoinette. For economy and speed, the new opera was built almost entirely of wood, which also gave it very high-quality acoustics. The wood was painted to resemble marble, and the ceiling was decorated with a painting of the Apollo, the god of the arts, preparing crowns for illustrious artists, by Louis-Jean-Jacques Rameau. The sculptor Augustin Pajou added statuary and reliefs to complete the decoration. The new opera was inaugurated on 16 May 1770 as part of the celebration of the royal wedding. The Seine River in northern France. Its drainage basin is in the Paris Basin, covering most of northern France. It rises at Source Seine, 30 kilometers northwest of Dijon, in northeastern France in the Langres Plateau, flowing through Paris and into the English Channel at Le Havre. It is navigable by ocean-going vessels as far as Rouen, 120 kilometers from the sea. Over 60% of its length as far as Burgundy is negotiable by large barges and most tour boats, and nearly its whole length is available for recreational boating. Excursion boats offer sightseeing tours of the river banks in the capital city, Paris. View over the Seine in Paris, Pont des Invalides in the foreground, Eiffel Tower in the background. There are 37 bridges in Paris across the Seine and dozens more outside the city. A notable bridge, which is also the last along the course of the river, is the Pont de Normandie, the 9th longest cable-stayed bridge in the world, which links Le Havre and Honfleur. In 2018, a $1.55 billion cleanup program called the Swimming Plan was launched with the aim of making the river safe to use for the 2024 Summer Olympics. The project includes constructing a basin to store rainwater, which would then be slowly released into the sewer system, preventing overflow. Plans also call for several public swimming areas to be made available by 2025, ending a 102-year ban instituted in 1923 due to the polluted water. Disneyland Paris is an entertainment resort in Chessy, France, 32 kilometers east of Paris. It encompasses 2 theme parks, resort hotels, nature resorts, a shopping, dining, and entertainment complex, and a golf course. Disneyland Park is the original theme park of the complex, opening in 1992. A second theme park, Walt Disney Studios Park, opened in 2002. Disneyland Paris celebrated its 30th anniversary in 2022. By then, 375 million people had visited, making it the most visited theme park in Europe. It is the second Disney park outside the United States, following the opening of the Tokyo Disney Resort in 1983, and the largest. Disneyland Paris is also the only Disney resort outside of the United States to be completely owned by the Walt Disney Company. It includes 7 hotels: Santa Fe, Hotel Chalian, Sequoia Lodge, Newport Bay Club, Hotel New York, The Art of Marvel, the Disneyland Hotel, and Davy Crockett Ranch. Disneyland Paris is considered to be the largest single-site employer in France, with its 17,000 employees. Now, let us see top 3 attractions. Phantom Manor. Disneyland Paris's trademark attraction is the best and most beautiful ride here, a fascinating twist on the classic haunted mansion concept that's a little bit scarier and more serious than its American cousins. The Frontierland in Paris is one of the most ingeniously designed areas of any Disney theme park, with an overarching story that touches pretty much everything within. It all culminates in Phantom Manor, which seamlessly weaves a ghostly story of loss and familial distress around familiar set pieces from the original Haunted Mansion. It's not just the focus on the sinister phantom that makes this so much creepier than the Haunted Mansion, or even the macabre finale, which is full of grotesque zombies in Frontierland's Old West town. Something as simple as removing narration makes the first stretch of the ride, where you move through the house's hallways, noticeably scarier. If you've never been to Disneyland Paris before, don't plan a trip unless you know Phantom Manor will be open. It's the park's true icon and centerpiece. Pirates of the Caribbean. Some Disney fans consider the Paris version of Pirates of the Caribbean to be the best in the world. I'm not sure if I agree, but it definitely beats the abbreviated one in Orlando. It feels like a weird remix of the Disneyland original, or even a mirror image of it. The final scenes in Anaheim are the first ones you see here, and the Dead Man's Cove Grotto is saved for the end of the ride. The meat of the attraction is very similar to what we have here in America, with the same scenes in the city siege portion, only everything is in French instead of English. I'd still rank the Anaheim version ahead of this one, but there's no arguing that Paris has the better show building and queue. Instead of standing in a bare courtyard, like the Anaheim ride, you find yourself exploring the long, winding corridors of an imposing fortress. Big Thunder Mountain. Paris's version of Disney's famous coaster might not have Dynamite Goat, but it does have a goat stealing a shirt from a clothesline, and that's definitely something. It's hard to pick a best Big Thunder, as all four that currently exist are on a similar level of thrills and theming. Paris's probably gets my nod, though, because of how it fits into the larger Frontierland. Frontierland at Disneyland Paris isn't just a collection of attractions with a similar theme. It's a unified thematic experience within the Old West town of Thunder Mesa, with every attraction, store, and restaurant built to tell a single story. This Big Thunder looks a bit older and more ragged than the other ones. The trains are specifically designed to appear worn down and rusty, and that adds to the sense of danger you should feel from a runaway mine train ride. Like so many Westerns, this version of Frontierland is about loss, about an old way of life that's dying and being replaced by something else, and Big Thunder proves that you can support narrative concepts like that through a roller coaster.